Hello everyone, and welcome to Biology 110. This is our introductory biology course. You'll find that this course provides a nice foundation for all of biology. As we move forward in this course, we're going to begin by talking about basic properties of life. While we're learning the basic properties of life, we'll think about how chemistry is involved. We'll talk about how the basic unit of life, the cell, how that is formed and how that functions and the parts of the cell. We'll talk about how genetic information from one cell or from one organism is passed on to the next generation. We'll then begin talking about how these basic properties of life relate to whole organisms, and how these organisms are related to each other, how they're similar, and how they are different, and what makes them unique to their own special circumstances. So we'll talk about organisms from bacteria to archaea to the eukaryotes, including the plants, fungi, protozoa, and animals. We'll then want to understand how these organisms all work together in the same ecosystem when we talk about ecology. How the organisms within common ecosystems influence each other for good or for bad. We'll focus a lot on how humans have affected many of these organisms within a common ecosystem. While we're studying all of this, from the very small things like parts of a cell to concepts like genetics, to our understanding of organisms and how these organisms affect local ecology, we're going to do it in the context of the foundation of biology, which is evolution. Any aspect of biology relates back to evolution, and so we will focus on that, but we'll also discuss how all of this that we're learning in biology, how that can influence health and disease, and how our understanding influences society. It's very important for us to appreciate how the sciences, in this case biology, how it merges with society, and how questions come up in everyday life that we will be better prepared to address by understanding the very basic concepts of biology. So that's a very brief breakdown of this course and kind of the direction we're going to go. But this course is set up a little bit differently than many other courses. As you'll see on the first day, we're in a special room called an active learning classroom. And so I want to take a few moments to explain to you how this course will be a little different and how you should best prepare to succeed in this course. The model that we will be using in this class is a model that's loosely based on a concept called flipped, and we'll use something called team-based learning. In your syllabus, I provided a short website that you could go to that kind of explains how we flip a classroom and why students in a flipped classroom tend to learn the material better. Now, to explain what I mean by flipped classroom and by team-based learning, I want to draw a little diagram. As with most classes, and this class will be no exception, you will learn some things outside of class and you will learn things inside of class. The way this course will work is that before you come to class, you will need to prepare. And what I mean by that is before you come to class, you will be asked to read from your textbook. So you'll have assigned readings. Now, what I have learned is that many of the textbooks that are used are pretty dense. There's a lot of material in it, and it's hard for a student to read that material for the first time and be able to pull out exactly what it is you need to know. It would be unfair for me to say, read chapter 5 and tell me what's important in it. So to help you with your readings that you're going to do on your own, I'm going to provide you with a couple of tools that will help break it down for you. The first thing is that I will provide you with note-taking guides. And in a moment, I'm going to show you where you find these at on Blackboard. So note-taking guides. And these note-taking guides will direct you to the pages that you need to read, and they will ask you specific questions about that material to help pull out what you need to know. And more importantly, the depth that you need to know the material. Because sometimes there's a lot more information in a textbook than I'm asking you to know. So it'll help you with the depth. Also to help you with the depth and to help make the material a little bit more understanding, I will provide podcasts. The podcasts are just like you see here. And if you're watching this, you were able to find this on Blackboard without my help. For each class, you will have between 1 and 3 podcasts. Each podcast is roughly 15-20 minutes long. And it will go over the note-taking guides. Now, sometimes there will be things in the note-taking guides that aren't on the podcasts. There will be some things that you will need to kind of break down on your own. But most of the things you'll find are on the podcasts. As you're learning the material, I think it would be best to have your book open, have your note-taking guide out so you can fill those in, and watch the podcast. And that way you'll be able to fill in all the gaps. Now, what happens when you come into class is where the team-based learning comes into play. And I'm just going to write this as TBL for team-based learning. The first thing you'll do when you come to class, every class except for days when we have exams, is you will take a quiz. I'm going to put an I by this for now. That just means it's an individual quiz. You'll take this one completely on your own. Then you will retake that quiz, the exact same quiz, same questions, same answers, all that good stuff, but you'll take it with your group. This will take about the first quarter of the class. The remainder of the class is time that we will spend working on activities. The idea of this approach is that you will come to class knowing some of that basic knowledge, and so that we can break down that material and work on the activities, the actual application of that material, the kinds of things you will find on your exams. We feel it's better that you learn that material in class where you can ask questions and work with other students, because that's a higher level learning, as opposed to having to struggle with that on your own. I should mention a little bit about these activities. These activities may just be advanced problems. We may work on cases and other kinds of applications of the material. Now, after class, after you've completed these quizzes and activities, there will be a homework. Now, in this class, your homework will be delivered to you through the publisher's online learning material. You will have until Sunday to complete that material. So this is more problems, but it's going to be assessing how well you have learned this material. These will be due the following Sunday. So if you have classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all that material will be due that Sunday. I make it due Sunday because I understand you have a lot that you're working on between this class and the other classes. This way you can fit it into your schedule. If you can, the best time to do this homework is shortly after class, sometime that day. I understand it's not always possible to do that, so I don't make it due that day. It's due Sunday, with a few exceptions where we have to make it due a little earlier because of the timing of exams. And then what we do is we start the cycle over again. You will prepare for class by doing additional readings, filling out additional note-taking guides, and watching additional podcasts. And then you'll come back to class and we repeat the cycle with a new TBL. As we go through this first week of classes, it'll become more clear how these different things come together. But what I'd like to do now is take a few moments to go to Blackboard and show you where you can find all of these tools. Okay, now as you're looking here at Blackboard, we can see two of the important tools you're going to need this semester to learn this material. The first is this tab here, Note-Taking Guides, and the second one are the podcasts. Now, since you're watching this podcast, I'm going to assume you've already found this podcast tab, but we'll look at that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and pull up the Note-Taking Guides. You'll find a note-taking guide here for each day of the semester. You'll notice that there is not a note-taking guide for day one, because day one we're just going to talk about the course, we're going to talk about the syllabus. So there's not a specific guide for that one. So when you want to look at one of these note-taking guides, just go ahead and click on it. I'm going to pull up day 3 note-taking guide to show you as an example. As you can see with day 3's note-taking guide, we have 2 objectives. And within each of these objectives, there are specific things you need to learn. Let's look at objective 2. Explain how scientists make observations and form and test hypotheses. You'll see here I tell you which pages you're supposed to look at, pages 16 to 25. And within this guide here, the best way to use them is to look at these bold terms here and leave them just as they are. But to the right here, look at the question I asked in italics. So it says qualitative and quantitative data. Over here it says, what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative data? What you'll do is look between pages 16 and 25 and answer that question. The next one is hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? You'll find a definition of hypothesis in these pages. Now, an area where students will sometimes make a mistake as they're filling these out, particularly as they're getting used to working with them, is they will put way too much information. For instance, natural selection. One could write an entire book or an entire library on natural selection. But right here, I'm just asking for a definition. So look up a definition of natural selection and type it in there. Here are Darwin's observations. What are the 3 observations that Darwin used to explain evolution? Here, I just want you to list these observations. Don't go into great detail about them. This is just a way to kind of help you fine-tune and narrow down how you're going to study the material. If you write down all the information that's in the textbook, you're going to see that you'll have several pages of information here, and it's going to be more difficult to study. These guides should help narrow down what you need to know. Another example down here, if you look at model organisms, I just want a definition. Over here, theory, this is a little bit more involved, so I want a little bit more here. How is a theory different from a hypothesis? Are scientific theories supported by a large body of evidence, or are they based on untested speculation? So this is a little bit more of a detailed question. I would expect you to write more here than here, where we just say define. I hope that helps you out as you fill these out in the future. As you're working with them, feel free to come talk to me if you're worried you're putting too much information or not enough information. I can give you a general idea if you're hitting the target appropriately. The next thing I want you to do is to look at the podcast tab here. As you can see here, I've listed days 2 through 8 will be coming up soon. I have days 9 through all the other days on Blackboard right now. I had to remake some of the earlier ones, so they'll be coming up soon. But as you can see, and as I said, you've already found this because you found this one you're watching now. But if you click on this, it will take you to the Panopto viewer. And what I would recommend is that you pull out the note-taking guide and watch the podcast at the same time, and fill in the note-taking guide as you're watching the podcasts. I would also recommend having the textbook nearby to help fill in those gaps that you see in the note-taking guide that I don't explain in the podcasts. Another piece of advice I would give you is that as you're watching the podcast, I highly recommend that you draw everything you see in the podcast or write everything I write in the podcast. Students in the past who've done well in this course said that they wrote everything they found in here. And what that served for them was a very nice study tool as they were preparing for the exams. In addition, sometimes students watch these podcasts before the exam to kind of remind them of some of the information that they might find difficult. If some of the podcasts seem like they're a little long and it's covering material that you feel pretty comfortable with, or if you're reviewing it, you can adjust the speed at which I'm speaking and drawing over here. You can make it slower. I doubt you'll want to do that, but you may. You could make it faster too, and that'll just speed it up if that's what you would like to do. The last thing I would like to do is to look at the Mastering website with you. This might be a new thing that you're looking at for the very first time, and there are a few things I want to point out to you. The first is this tab here for assignments. All of your assignments will be listed here. It might be easier to look at them in this view here as a calendar, and you can see when various assignments are due. And to do these assignments, you just click on the assignment. For instance, Mastering Biology Assignment 1. You just click on this, and it'll take you to the assignment, and then you can just do each of the questions. As you're doing the questions, if you miss a part of it or all of it, it'll allow you to repeat that question up to 3 times. The goal of these assignments is not to penalize you for missing something, but to give you a chance to learn something that was unclear to you. So I give you multiple chances to get the correct answer. If you don't like the calendar view like you see here, you can hit the list view, and on the list it will show you all the assignments that you have due. You won't see all of these yet because I haven't made them available quite yet, but you should see the first few. The homework assignments, these mastering assignments, are usually going to be due on Sundays. I think it's best if you have time to do these assignments right after class or shortly after class. That will help cement some of the material you learned in class and test whether or not you understand that material. However, I recognize that you are taking other classes and your weeks are busy, and so I make them do Sunday so you can fit them into your own schedule as it's appropriate. However, as I said, if you have time, I would recommend trying to do these as shortly after class as possible. Another thing I want to show you is this thing called Study Area. You'll see several things here that you might find useful. I'll point out a few, but go through all of these with the material that you're finding a little bit more difficult. Here's a Bioflix. These are just animations that the publisher has that you can click on, and it'll take you to very, very well done animations to explain certain concepts. There will be chapter guides, tutor sessions, just audio sessions. There are these videos here that talk about specific social issues, and several other things that you may want to take a peek at. The last thing I want to show you is the ebook. You probably purchased a traditional textbook, and that's fine. You can use that, but you'll find that that's quite heavy, particularly as the semester goes forward. The ebook is quite useful, and if you only bought the ebook, then this is the only source you're going to have. And I think you'll find it to be a very useful tool, and in some ways maybe better than the textbook. As you're looking here, you can search for various terms that you're looking for. So maybe you want to find out in the textbook where we talk about conservation biology. And you type that in here and you'll see several chapters, 56, and this other front part of the book. But let's just go ahead and click on one of these. And it'll take you right to that page. Now, some things you can do as you're reading this that make the ebook, I think, nice and also similar to what you might be used to when you have your own textbook. If you have your own written textbook, you may want to make a note on the side of it. And you can do that with the ebook by clicking on this little pin here. So I clicked on the pin, and now I'm going to make a little post-it note right here. And you can type what you want. Maybe you're reading this and you remembered that I mentioned in class that this was going to be on the exam. So you might write something like, Gorsuch says this will be on the exam. You may want to add a website that helps explain a certain concept. There's a lot of different things you can do here. Then you hit save, and yeah, we can close it. Now, if you want to come back here and figure out why you put this little pin here, you just click on the pin, and it'll tell you why. You may want to highlight something. There might be something you find particularly interesting. So here's our highlighter here. And so I'm going to just highlight it like that. Just like you might do with a regular textbook. Now let's say we're reading this particular chapter, and as we're moving along, you find this particular chapter useful, or maybe you stopped reading at this chapter and this page, and so you want to make sure you come back to it. You can put a bookmark on this page, and it'll just turn a little page here so you know where you left off, or you may know that there's something very interesting on that page that you want to come back to. Throughout the semester, as you look at this ebook, you will find things in it that other things that I haven't talked about that you will find useful. All the tools that we talked about here on Blackboard and in Mastering are designed to help you learn the material better and to help you with content that is more difficult. As you're moving through, if you're having problems with any of these tools, please make sure you come see me. And more importantly, if you're having problems with any of the concepts that you're learning throughout the semester, definitely come see me. All right, I'll see you in class.